Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Neota Network. This one is on our author's path. So if you're a builder in Neota Logic, if you're new to Neota Logic, if you're interested in building in Neota Logic, this is something that will really spark your interest. Today, I'd like to introduce Vinay Varma, who's a senior solutions engineer here at Neota Logic, part of our customer success team. And Vinay today is actually going to do a deeper dive into creating and negotiating documents. So if you're at all interested in document automation, but then as well, taking that document automation to the next step, including some negotiation aspect to it and perfecting the document all the way through to signature, execution, and storage, this is the talk for you. So Vinay is going to actually do a few demos on how to use the building blocks to create a powerful solution. And then as well, automate some of the drafting and negotiation aspects of it too. If you're looking for a complementary session to this one, Jackson Liu just did a session which is on the building blocks themselves. So feel free to replay that one after if you didn't catch it, but these two definitely complement each other. So enough of me, over to Vinay. Vinay, take it away.
Thank you, Max, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining today's session. It's great to be here with all of you. The purpose of the session today is to showcase a solution that we've built in Neota around the creation, negotiation, and execution of documents, which can be used by law firms and in-house legal teams alike. And importantly, this solution, which we've called Neota Velocity, has been built out of 3 building blocks, which are accessible to all of our customers in their respective workbenches. So in the library tab of all workbenches, our customers can access these different building blocks. We've used different blocks for different phases of this particular contract lifecycle. So for the creation phase, we've used the clause library to help lawyers to access specific clauses from that library, choose the relevant clause which they want to drop into the agreement, and then automate that document creation process. Negotiation, the next phase of the workflow, we're using the open negotiation building block. And then finally for execution, we're into Docusign integration. And again, these are all out of the box, available to all customers in the library tab. So to showcase the solution to you, there's 2 elements to this, the clause library itself and the main tool. I'll just go through the clause library first to give you some orientation on what that looks like. So this is a standalone tool designed to allow law firms and legal teams to upload all of their clauses which sit across different agreements and then make them accessible to the individual apps, which I'll showcase in just a second. So we land on the landing page of the clause library. We can view the library, add clauses, edit clauses, and gain insights into how those clauses are being used, which is really, really interesting. So in terms of viewing the clause library, if we click on the first tile, here we can see a list of all clauses uploaded to the clause library. And we can see here, just by way of orientation, that we have some headings on the top, a search bar, and then we have the content underneath. So we have the first column being agreements. And just to bear in mind here that all of these columns are completely customizable depending on your needs. But out of the box, we get the first column being the agreement. So which agreement does the clause belong to? Next, the name of the clause, then the clause text, and then we have other fields. So in this case, we have guidance notes around when to use that particular clause. We also have a preferred or alternate tag. But you can customize this however you like. So this could be jurisdiction, markets, risk type, industry sector, whatever categorization you may have of your clauses, that can all be surfaced here. In terms of getting the clauses into the library, there's different ways you can do that. You go to add clauses and manually insert the clauses one by one if you need to make a quick update or quick insertion. You can also bulk upload clauses via an Excel sheet. And we also have REST APIs with Kira and Let's Predict. So if there are other tools that you need to integrate with, we can do that as long as they have a REST API. You can also edit the clauses that you've already inserted in that library and then gain telemetry and insights into how those clauses are being used. I think this will make a lot more sense when we look at the main tool, Neota Velocity, so we can see how we integrate with that clause library. So the main tool here, Neota Velocity, on the landing page, we have different options. So first of all, we can draft a new agreement. So if you're a lawyer at a law firm or in the legal team, you can click on this tile and start drafting. You can manage your clause library, which I just showed you. You can negotiate third-party agreements, so uploading a third-party Word document into the tool or any Word document to then benefit from the negotiation and execution building blocks. And then you can also gain insights into how the business is generating different types of contracts. So if we click on draft agreements, what we have here, just for demonstration purposes, is a set of corporate agreements on an M&A deal. Of course, this can be customized to the department and team that will be accessing this particular tool. But let's click on the Master Services Agreement document generation tool. So here we have the MSA Generator, and this application is designed specifically to generate MSAs, Master Services Agreements. So the idea is that you'll have a separate application or separate forms within one application, which will help you build out specific documentation. So in this case, it's an MSA. And let's put ourselves into the shoes of a private practice lawyer that needs to draft an initial draft of a Master Services Agreement. So they'll come into this tool, and we have 3 clear instructions here on what they can do. Insert answers to questions, select relevant provisions from the clause library, and then submit to the counterparty. So now we have a form with some basic information, which we fill in to populate our documents, our MSA, with the relevant information. So in this case, we are from Acme. So our company, our law firm, let's say, is called Acme Limited, unlikely name for a law firm. And we are contracting with Neota Logic. So let me just change this email address here. These are the details of the counterparties. I'm sure you would have seen document automation in Neota, where you fill in fields and the document gets populated. Same thing again, now we're getting into the more substantive part of a document. What's the governing law, period of confidentiality, termination provisions. And then we get onto the clause library. So this is where we integrate with that library of clauses. And the way we've done it in this particular solution is to give the user the option to select from relevant clauses out of these following categories. So confidentiality and limitation of liability are the clause categories that we are concerned with in this particular document. And here we have confidentiality provisions insofar as they relate to MSAs and different iterations of that clause, together with the guidance notes and all the associated contents that would have come from the clause library. That will all be surfaced in this application as the lawyer is drafting the particular document. So in this case, let's say that we want to select this clause as our relevant confidentiality clause. And again, this will all depend on the deal parameters and the terms of the engagement. Limitation of liability, same thing again. Let's select a clause from these options and we'll press continue. Then we should just note here that you can search across different clauses there, and you could also ensure that you can edit those selected clauses if you need to. So there's different ways that you can bring in the clause library as you're drafting your specific agreements. So once you've filled in the forms and you've selected clauses from that clause library, a document will be produced, and this will contain the selections that we chose. So we have our confidentiality provision here, and we also have our the other provision that we selected, limitation of liability. So those have appeared in the document. We've generated a first draft. We've got our signature blocks up and running with the names of the initiator and the counterparty. And we're now ready to send this document to the counterparty. So we'll press continue. And there we have it. We've created the document in the app, and we've just by pressing continue, we've now emailed that to the counterparty. So if I click on the counterparty link here, counterparty receives a link to access the tool. And now the counterparty is viewing their own welcome screen, telling them to review the documents, insert comments if they need to, and then send that back to the initiator. So in this case, obviously there will be situations where a lawyer will not want to prompt comments from a third party. But if a lawyer is giving this document to someone in the business, if they're in-house, or to a client, you're almost certainly going to get comments. So why not make that easier? Avoid dealing with different versions and documents in Word. You can do all of this in an application, all through email links to progress the workflow along. So here we have the document sitting inside this window, and this is the open negotiation building block. And you can have some explanatory text here for the counterparty to guide them on what to expect when they look at this document and what actions to perform. So here, as a counterparty, let's say that I like this clause and that I want to delete this and comment on this. So we go to insert comments, just as you would in Word. Add a comment. So again, all of this functionality should be very familiar to anybody with experience in Word. We're just trying to surface that in the application itself. Counterparty says that they have further changes. So that will then go to the initiator at Acme to review those comments and to see if they can sign off on those. So that's gone. We should receive an email straight away. And the initiator logs back in and has a different welcome screen here to guide them through the next stage of this particular workflow. So they need to review the comments, accept or reject any of those particular comments, and then send it back to the counterparty. So again, similar format. And here we can see the counterparty's comments surfaced to the initiator. Let's presume in this particular scenario that the initiator wants to accept all the comments. Again, functionality that should be very familiar with all users. Oh, sorry about this. Okay, and accept the delete the comment. We're not interested in that particular comment, and we want to send this document back to the counterparty. So we've accepted all of their comments. We're now sending this back to the counterparty for their final review before we move on to the execution phase. So you can see that we're not dealing with any third-party tools. Everything is done in the application itself. Draft agreement for review. Counterparty gets this back. And once a counterparty reviews the documents and they're happy with it, they can simply click on I accept. So I have no further changes. We're good to go. And that then goes back to the initiator for signature. So if we compare this to the process of uploading a Word document to an email, sending that across to the counterparty, getting the counterparty to then provide comments through track changes or black lines and constantly going through those versions, this keeps it all very neat and tidy. Everything is done in the application. And we even then get to benefit from those other building blocks after we've negotiated the document. So once we've negotiated and agreed the doc, we then get into Docusign, where the initiator can sign the document straight away. So in this particular scenario, we are talking about a binary scenario between an initiator and a counterparty, but you can see how this can be used across different use cases. This could be used for in-house legal teams for the business teams to quickly prepare a document and send it to the legal team for review, or vice versa. And by having the integrations all here, we can really streamline the speed and the time it takes to get a document from its initial draft all the way through to execution. So simply, James Smith would sign here, finish, this would go back to the counterparty, and that's the contract fully executed. We can then also integrate with Box or with SharePoint or other DMS integrations so that you can then store the signed documents where it needs to go in the relevant part of your systems. So that's an example of how we've pulled together the building blocks around clause library, open negotiation, and Docusign. Just to quickly show you one other piece to this. If we go back to the Velocity demo, I mentioned the Insights tab. Now here we can build custom insights around what's been happening in that process. So if you're an in-house legal team and you want to keep track of all of your cases and all of your sessions being created, i.e. essentially acting as a matter management tool for new matters coming in from the business, this is a great way of keeping track. Also, you can keep track of the status and the stage of each of these documents. So you can see, whether the document is with signatories or out for negotiation, whether signed agreements have been provided. All of that is easy to track and to deal with. And just finally here, in terms of dashboards, we've just got some template dashboards here, but we can create, or customers can create their own dashboards to highlight the key information throughout that process. So for example here, how many documents have been created through the tool, how many SPAs, shareholder agreements, confidentiality docs, etc., and what's the status of those documents. So there's a multitude of ways in which you can customize the views that you're getting if you're a manager or if you need to keep a track of your own workflow. We can certainly ensure that that's all accessible. And going one level deeper, with the clause library, you'll be able to track how many times a particular clause is being used, and that can give you really good insights into what is market standard for a particular deal and a particular industry sector. So lots of insights can be gained from using this and from using apps to create your documents and to negotiate them. Plenty of efficiencies to be gained, but importantly here, all of this has been prepared and produced using those building blocks that are template apps in Neota. So hope that was a good insight into what you can do with those building blocks, and we're continuing to build those blocks out and improve on those and have new use cases which can be used as end-to-end products. So hopefully that was useful. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any other questions, and we'll take it over to Max to hand over.
Thank you so much, Vinay. I think a lot of great insight. I always say Neota is best shown rather than just talked about. So a lot of great stuff that you dug into there, and showing the capabilities that are available around document automation. A lot of these use cases aren't as simple as fill out some information and create a document. People are looking for additional tasks that need to be done, and as well to automate entire processes, not just one aspect of it. So seeing that negotiation aspect, seeing that automation portion of it, and all the other stuff you could build around workflows and review and approvals and previews and all that great stuff. So thank you so much, Vinay, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. There'll be a lot of complimentary sessions to this one. I'd also suggest Jackson Liu's session, which was a little bit earlier. We'll have some replays ready for you a little later, but wanted to thank you for joining us today, and still more sessions for today, and then lots of content for tomorrow. So looking forward to seeing you then. And thank you for joining us again.